Chapter 08. After we came back from Dworgen, I took the time to introduce Kaijin and his hapless friends to the goblins. We'd all be working together for a while to come, so I wanted to get off on the right foot. Come to think of it, I didn't see much in the way of casual racism from the dwarves, most of them, anyway. Given the demi-magical origins we all shared, I suppose it made sense. I could imagine us crossing their paths again someday. We were now more or less ready to roll. The only problem was transport. Ranga, of course, was wagging his tail, as if me hopping on him was the pinnacle of his life. I explained to him that I needed his full 15-foot size for a bit so he could fit 2 out of the 3 brothers on his back. Ranga was not a fan of this idea. His face instantly turned sullen as he wobbled backward and plopped his ass on the ground. He glowered at the newcomers as if to suggest he could just eat them instead and save everyone a lot of trouble. The dwarves almost jumped out of their skin. Even when they first saw him, they'd wailed in perfect unison. "Gah, how could you ever?" and so forth. Either this was a well-practiced routine of theirs, or Ranga really did scare them that much. There had to be something I could do. How do they scared of my cute little puppy? "Hang on, Ranga," I said. "I tried transforming into one of you guys earlier, and I'd like to test out how it works a bit. That's why I want you to let these dwarves on, all right?" His head immediately shot up. "I understand, my master." Kaijin and Garm, eldest of the 3 brothers, would go on my back. Ranga would take Dold and Mildo. Once they were on, I'd spin some sticky thread to make sure they stayed on. These guys did nearly 50 at their peak. In this motorcycle-free world, the experience would probably make them pass out. Not that I knew whether I could handle that speed or whether I wanted to. Mimic, Tempest Starwolf. Astounding. Your dazzling strength knows no bounds, my master. Ranga, ha ha ha, yeah, I'll bet, and you'll look like this someday soon, if you keep it up. Rimuru, we will do our best to live up to your lofty expectations, my master. Ranga's eyes sparkled at this new mission in life. The rest of the Tempest wolves grew equally excited. Always a good idea to motivate the troops a bit. So I turned to Kaijin and Garm to get them to hop on, and... well, that's weird, they're all unconscious and foaming at the mouth. What are these guys doing, anyway? Oh well, I knew that practice would come in handy. A little sticky thread off my back, and everyone was pulled up and put firmly in place. Success. Fainted dwarves wouldn't make great traveling companions, but either way, we were off. Putting the dwarves in the back of my mind, I proceeded down the path back home. At least they wouldn't bite their tongues or whatnot if they were unconscious. If I were them, I wouldn't want to wake up in the middle of this scream machine anyway. It'd be better for everyone if they stayed asleep until it was all over. I'll feed 'em, of course, but I really am mean to people, aren't I? Less than affirmative, greater than. I don't need your input on that. And speaking of which, Rimuru, have you ever successfully summoned one of the black wolves before? Rimuru, quote. I have not, Rimuru-sama, it embarrasses me to admit. Rimuru, he hadn't, and it was a point of frustration for the other goblins, too, not to mention their wolf partners. So why just Gobda? Really? Because I guess Gobda managed to. Rimuru. What? Gobda, is that true? Rimuru. Why yes. I gave the call, and he came over for me. Gobda. There was a fighting spirit in everyone's and every dog's eyes now. Quote. It's not impossible, Rimuru reflected. Gobda is strong enough to have done the Dwarven Kingdom journey round trip on foot once. Rimuru. Oh, right, I thought he was a slobbering idiot, but apparently he was good in a pinch. He was an idiot, of course, but not useless. Surviving a 4-month journey through the wilderness and foraging off the land wasn't something any old guy could do. He'd had to deal with monsters along the way, too, weak though they might have been. I placed Gobda a few rungs higher in my internal totem pole. He'd probably tumble right back down soon enough. At night, we decided to camp and rest for night. Next day, Kaijin and others woke up. As they ate, I reviewed our future plans. We would be at the village in another 2 days or so, I explained. Number. They whispered in unison, realizing exactly how fast those wolves were taking them. Hey, don't worry, I told them. Once you get used to it, it's a breeze. It'd be nice if they could get used to it, but I figured we'd probably reach the end of the journey before then. We set off back down the road. Time to build a thought communication space for us. Now that I'd done it a few times, it came naturally to me. The dwarves picked up on it, too, which was a relief. Thought communication was a sort of high-level version of telepathy, letting you build links and talk with multiple people at once. It also made things like strategy meetings easier for us. It remained effective across a range of half a mile or so, which was more than enough for my purposes. Either way, the dwarves were getting into the swing of things, and their makeshift helmets were having the effect I wanted. I could talk with them now, and they were kind enough to teach me a thing or two about life in their kingdom as we rode on. The goblins were listening in as well, chiming in about their own experiences, and we had a nice, friendly confab for much of the day. This should keep up in the village, too, I hoped. As I suddenly remembered something else, I decided to bring it up. Well, let me ask you this, then, Kaijin. Why did you come with me? Wouldn't it have been the best thing for your life if you rejoined the king? Rimuru asked them worriedly. I wonder why they came with me in the end. I am just slime. Abandoning their whole life in Dworgen just for a slime. Coming to a small monster village. Was it worth it? I am worried they are doing because I helped them. And they won't reply the favor. I don't want to force them into this. Gah ha ha ha. Well, a lot more sensitive than I thought. Rimuru. I did it because it looked like fun. It was just instinct, you know. Like, hey, this guy's gonna go out and do something. That's all the reason I needed, you know. Kaijin. Hey, I retorted. Well, don't come crying to me later if it turns sour. I'm pretty well known for being mean to people. It was true, I did practically nothing by myself. I entrusted everything to others. But I did want to help. To be relied on. I wanted to be the sort of person who could manage that. Oh, I know, Kaijin replied. I nodded, satisfied. 2 days later, we arrived at the village on time. Mission accomplished. So there we were, back at the goblin village. It had been only about 2 weeks, but I was seriously starting to miss it a little. Assuming you wanted to call it a village at all. It was more of an empty space with a fence around it. While we were gone, a few simple tents had been pitched around the area. There were signs of progress, at least. I spotted a large iron pot situated over the remains of the central campfire. Goblin cuisine used to be all about spit roasting, but now they'd added simmering to the mix. The resident hobgoblins spotted our returning party quickly, greeting us with cheers and applause. I had rudely forgotten to bring souvenirs, but given the monster pelts and such I spotted drying here and there proceeds from their hunting, no doubt I was sure the dwarves would have everyone kitted up and clothed before long. I'd like the goblins to make that stuff themselves later, but let's take it one step at a time. Welcome back, Rigert said while running towards me before I could ask. I hate to bother you so soon after returning, Rimuru-sama, but we have visitors. Visitors? But I don't remember having any friends. I decided to let the dwarves show themselves around. They'd be living here for a while, and I was sure they were curious to see what it was like. I also stowed the tools I'd brought along in an empty tent, figuring the covering would at least offer some protection against the elements. Leaving our new residence to Rigyur, I had the elder guide me to our guests. He took me to one of the larger tents, which had been converted into a sort of meeting room. Who could it be? I guess I'll find out, I thought as I bounced in. Once I passed under the flap, I stopped. Inside were a bunch of goblins, the regular kind. Several of them were well dressed, each one accompanied by a handful of servants. Some elders and their guards, maybe. Nobody was armed, not that I minded that. Before I could ask what was up, the goblins prostrated themselves on the floor. It is an honor to meet you, O great master. They all shouted in unison. Please, listen to our most earnest of hopes. Great master, I guess they mean me, but really, that's going too far. They sure believed it, though. Their eyes couldn't have been more longing or resolute. There was no telling what they wanted, but I figured I'd hear them out. All right, go ahead. Rimuru, oh, thank you for your generosity. One of the elders shouted. All of us here wish to join your throngs of followers, sir. Please, grant us your magnanimous kindness. The others said as they remained on the floor, eyes turned to me, before bowing low. I didn't mind taking them in. I would feel bad if they died. After Veldora's disappearance, Forest became lot more Dangors. If they stab us in the back after that, I just cross that bridge when I get there. Anyone who wants to come over, have at it, I told the goblin representatives. That was enough to send them back home for now. As I looked over the teeming crowds of goblins, I thought to myself, this is, kind of too many, isn't it? Far too many to house within the village's space. Why did this have to be my problem, anyway? Over the past few days, we'd been stuck building axes, using them to chop down trees for wood, and so on. We hadn't even started on houses yet. There was just too much to work on. Kaijin was handling wood duties, while the three dwarven brothers worked on processing the animal pelts into hobgoblin clothing. The looks they had been giving the females were less than savory. I figured it was best to set them on that job before anything else. We were in the midst of this when the goblins showed up. 4 tribes, about 500 of them in total. The rest were still in the villages with the elders who opted to stay put. Well, time for a move. It wouldn't make much difference work-wise, assuming we did it right now. I checked my mental map of the area. Preferably I'd have liked something with nearby water and some cleared land suitable for farming. As I walked around, I realized that the most ideal location was the area right nearby the cave I'd popped out of. That took care of one issue, but I had something bigger on my plate naming. Just thinking about it depressed me. I had the sinking feeling that by the time I got halfway through the 500 or so goblins, I'd just be running through the alphabet. Absidef would be a little hard to pronounce. Though, still, I had to get started. It took around 4 days to get through them all, with a quick bit of sleep mode in between, and I really had to hand it to myself. I stuck it out to the end. Not quite as exhausting as last time, but not a process I wanted to repeat anytime soon. I called the tribal elders over. They knelt down in their stately hobgob way. Rigurd was there, and following in his footsteps were 3 others I had just named, Rugurd, Rigurd, and Rogurd. That left one unnamed elder, and she was a woman. Something feminine sounding was best, I thought, so I picked Lilina. One advantage of everyone being hobgobs was that I could actually tell them apart by gender. Magic sense could help me do that with the regular gobs, but to the naked eye, it was a challenge. Could I turn Lilina into another name series, maybe? I thought about it but decided not to worry about the future too much. No time for it. All right, I declared, I'm giving all of you ranks. Rigurd received a nice upgrade to Goblin King, the other 4 elders became Goblin Lords. The rest of the goblins in the village immediately bowed to them, which was a spine-tingling sight to see. Why yes, our lord. The elders parroted. The ensuing cheers were deafening. I had just inadvertently penned a new chapter in goblin history. After making sure everything was in place, we set off. It was our first step toward a new land. Toward a new nation for us. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. The sound of chopping trees and hammering echoed throughout the forest. Slowly, the new town and its houses were beginning to take shape. In our minds, at least. We were still busy laying out the water and septic system, so for now, it was still just a clearing. Oh, is that where you were, Rimuru-sama? I was searching for you. Rigurd, what is it, Rimuru? I've come to report to you, sir. We've captured a few suspicious individuals. Rigurd said with serious expression. Suspicious? A bunch of monsters, or? Rimuru asked worried. No, sir, humans. We did not engage them, as you ordered. Rigurd, humans. Why here, Rimuru? Whoa, sweet. Better get on their good sides, fast. They were engaged in battle with a group of giant ants, it seems. Rigurd and his security detail rescued them and took them here, but, apparently he suspects they are conducting an investigation of the local area. I thought I would come to you for advice. Rigurd, all right, take me to them, I said as I hopped on Rigurd's shoulder. So aboard Rigurd's shoulders, I made my way to see these adventurers. Who are they? I wondered before a conversation entered my figurative ears. Whoa, hey, I wanted that. Opening parenthesis question mark closing parenthesis. That's just mean, isn't it? I raised this meat myself. Sir, I regret to inform you that I am not giving up this food. Opening parenthesis question mark closing parenthesis. Munch, certainly seemed like some excitement. Rimuru, Rigurd replied to my silent question. My apologies, Sir Rimuru. It would seem the ants made off with most of their luggage, and even before then, they had not had a decent meal in some time, so I had some brought to them. That was kind of the Goblin King, to be sure. Oh, that's no problem, I replied. In fact, good job noticing. Helping out someone in need is a nice thing, you know. Rimuru, haha, I will do my best to improve my rule and be less of a burden upon you, Rimuru-sama. Rigurd, the moment we stepped in, I felt all eyes upon me. 4 adventurers sat on the ground, their mouths full of assorted meats and vegetables. Their eyes were wide open as they gawked at me. It was a hilarious sight to see, although they probably didn't realize it. Have I seen them somewhere before? Oh, right, they were the adventurers I passed by in the cave, although one of them was new to me. I wondered how any kind of food got through the mask this figure had on. Munch, munch. They sat there for a moment, chewing. They sure were taking their time. Rigurd walked up to a tall seat on one side and placed me upon it. My guests, he bellowed as he sat next to me, I do hope you are comfortable here. Allow me to introduce you to our master, Rimuru-sama. I could hear them swallowing down their food. Then, in unison, a slime, munch, munch, all of them reacted with shock. Well, I'm not sure about the last one, actually. Whatever, it is good to meet you. I am Rimuru, a slime. Not a bad slime, you know. Rimuru, I heard a sputtering sound from under the mask. With all the food that guy was chewing, the results probably weren't pretty. Rude jerk. Well, it's my fault for joking around, but if a girl with a mask reacted that much, it means she is probably otherworlder. There is no way anyone from my land wouldn't know that reference probably. Oh, we're human adventurers, by the way, and this meat is really good. We've been running for the past 3 days, I think, so it's been hard to eat much of anything. Thank you so much. Opening parenthesis question mark, closing parenthesis. Yeah, thanks. I sure didn't expect some hobgoblins to be building a village around here. Since they were eating, I decided to give them privacy. Settling down back in my tent, I began patiently waiting. Rigurd had one of his female assistants prepare some tea for us. It looked more palatable than the last beverage I'd tried from them, so I took my elf form and took sip. Well, it still has a long way to go, but it was better than before. When I took my elf from, everyone was surprised at the beginning, but they got used to it pretty soon. After a few more moments, the 4 adventurers popped in, immediately giving a hearty, sorry about that. As they entered, the tent was a little cramped with all of them inside. Once their goblin guide was gone, another one brought out some fresh tea for the group. There, see, real service, out of nowhere. They must have picked it up from the dwarves. I knew they had been spending nights drinking with them, learning about their society and culture. Ah, good to see you again. My name is Rimuru, and I'm the leader of this little group. What brings you guys over here? Rimuru, what, but didn't the leader was a slime? Opening parenthesis question mark, closing parenthesis. See, I am slime. I just took form more appropriate for talking, Rimuru, I said while taking my slime from. What? Everyone was surprised. After that I took my elf form and asked, and you are? Rimuru. Oh, I am glad to meet you, Rimuru. My name is Kabul, the leader of this band, more or less. This is Ellen, and that's Guido over there. We're adventurers, all rank B. You know what that means, I imagine. Kabul said, realizing it was rude of them to not introduce themselves. Hi, Ellen here. Ellen, Guido, ma'am, a pleasure. Guido. So they were a party. Being rank B put them in the upper echelons, to be sure, but they would have faced a rough time in the cave, no. Maybe they were masters at hiding from monsters or something. And what about the other one in their ranks? I was sure there were only 3 of them in the cave. This, meanwhile, is Shizu, a temporary addition to our team for this mission. Kabul. Shizu. Charmed. Shizu. It was hard to tell her gender or age strictly from her voice. But after honing my talents trying to differentiate goblins, I could tell right off she was a woman. And, if my hunch was correct, maybe even Japanese. That was the impression I had. Although, it occurred to me, was it me, or were these adventurers being way too cavalier with their own safety right now? So far, they seemed to be enjoying their stay immensely, eating, drinking, and laughing with each other. This was a monster's den they'd wandered into. They knew that, right? Maybe they just had a screw loose, I dunno. Oops, got sidetracked. Time to continue the conversation. You too, thanks. So, Rimuru. They were exceedingly forthright with their story, apparently not wary of my motives in the least. Their guild master had sent them to examine the area around the cave and check to see whether anything suspicious had taken place, but this mission was proving to stymie them. Yeah, that's the thing. Kabul continued. We're here looking for suspicious things, but what the heck is suspicious supposed to mean? We're clueless here. Totally. Ellen chimed in. I wish he could have said, like, look for this or that or the other thing, instead of leaving it so vague. We might be good scouts and all that, but we can't do everything, you know. Guido added. And so they bad-mouthed their guild master without a care in the world. I almost felt sorry for the guy. We continued talking for a while. These guys were a lot more good-natured than I gave them credit for at first. Just in case, I decided to ask whether the guild would have any problems with us building a town here. It oughta be fine, right? Cobble said. Yeah, Ellen agreed. It's not the guild's problem in the first place. What about the local governments, though? Ooh, that ain't for me to say, was Guido's opinion. Then, as I thought over this, I noticed that something was going on with Shizu, who'd been sitting there listening the whole time. Suddenly, she slumped to the floor, unconscious. We all immediately came up to her, trying to hold her up, when NHH, NRAAAAAHHHHHH. Shizu. Things progressed quickly after that. Once Shizu's extended groan ended, the tent was visited by absolute silence. Cracks were now appearing over her mask, mystical force wafting out from beneath. All of us could tell that something bad was happening. Summon magic, Ellen shouted in surprise. Great Earth, place thy bonds over her. Mud hand, Ellen, knockdown, Cobble. First, Ellen tied her down. Then Cobble landed a full-body blow. Guido played backup, ready to act the moment trouble appeared. For B ranks, their teamwork was top-notch. Not a single wasted movement. But all Shizu had to do was lift the top of her index finger up a bit, and that was enough to trigger a small explosion around her. So much for my tent, which I didn't mind that much, but what about those three? Were they hurt? There was a bit of a shock wave, but I was unscathed. Wait, no way. The Conqueror of Flames. Guido. Shizu was still casting a spell. Her entire body was glowing bright red, hovering in the air a little. Her mask remained prominent on her face as her long black hair spilled out of her robe. What's she trying to do? She seemed strange to me a moment before all this happened. Rigurd, get everyone out of town. Don't let anyone near here. I shouted. But, Rigurd, that's an order. Rimuru, after hearing that, he quickly left. Flames shot upward. Up in the sky, 3 flame salamanders appeared. It was a hell of a way for Shizu to reveal her face to us. Her black hair fanned outward with the shock wave, shining brilliantly against the inferno. She had a fleeting, transient beauty to her, but her eyes emitted a wicked shine, and the edges of her lips were twisted upward in what seemed to be an expression of utter joy at the carnage she had seen. Something about it struck me as completely unnatural, in a way I couldn't describe very well. Then, launching unique skill, Deviant. The voice of the world echoed around us. As it did, the beautiful young girl transformed into a giant of pure fire. No mistaking it, Guido shouted. That's the Conqueror of Flames, the master of Ifrit the Titan. The strongest elementalist in the world. Ifrit, the Fire Titan. The Lord of Fire, capable of burning anything in his path. A level above any royalty, mortal or divine. Even in this predicament, I wasn't trembling with fear or anything. Maybe it was because I was a monster now. I mean, Veldora and that black snake kind of freaked me out at first, but both wound up being good experiences in the end. Hey, what are you trying to do? Rimuru asked Shizu. Shizu, something is wrong with her. Less than notice. Ifrit has taken over individual Shizu's body greater than. What? Suppressing Ifrit was priority 1, I could check up on Shizu later. I shot a water blade at Ifrit's stomach. It evaporated right before reaching the flame giant, a spiraling plume of fire cut it off. Guess that won't work, but I didn't have time to ponder it, because the salamanders had just reacted to my attack. Icicle Lance. Ellen's ice magic stabbed its way through one of them. As I took a peek at her, she was already fleeing back into her corner of the magic barrier. It was a clever attempt. It looked as if the barrier was holding up well enough without much concentration on the caster's part. But it'd take more than an icicle lance to shoot down those salamanders. Less than suggestion. Physical attacks will not work against spiritual foes. Striking their elemental weakness or using magic will affect them greater than. That's a them let's use. Icicle Lance. Rimuru. I used the same magic Ellen used, but compared to her my icicle lance were a lot more powerful. It took out the salamander in a single hit. So use it to take out other salamanders too. Now only Ifrit alone is left. I gave some potions to Ellen and her party and told them to evaluate. Don't worry, Ifrit's all mine, Rimuru said, reassuring Ellen and her party. After hearing that they left. Now as for Ifrit. By the time I thought, oh, crap. It was already too late. The moment I felt it, I was already surrounded. A wide-range barrier to trap me. One of Ifrit's intrinsics. In an instant, there was a magic circle painted on the ground, no chanting required to cast it. I forgot I wasn't the only one who could do that. He had transformed his own body into gas and turned a 100-yard radius into a searing hot ocean of flame. Probably one of Ifrit's high-level ranged attacks, and even worse, the area was brimming with energy from the Ifrit clones I had defeated. Flare circle. I heard a voice that I couldn't quite decipher. Man, woman, young, old. Hard to tell. I mentally prepared myself for death. Certain other regrets also entered my mind. Still, I knew my senses were ultra-fast, but it sure was taking a while for the damage to arrive. Not that I minded a painless death, if it had to be that way. Seriously, wasn't this going kind of slowly? Was he just screwing with me? Weird. I should have been swallowed up by the flames a while ago. Less than the effects of resist temperature have successfully cancelled flame-based attacks automatically. Greater than Raphael. I detected at least a bit of, you forgot all about resist temperature, didn't you? Sarcasm to the voice. Now that flame attack doesn't work on me. Time to finish up, then. Use unique skill, Predator. Yes. No. That'll be a big ol' yes, please. A flash of bright light covered the area, then suddenly vanished. All that was left was a lone old woman and me. Shizue lost consciousness, so I picked her up and put her in bed in nearby intact tent. So she can rest. After I completed my after-battle cleanup, I went to see how she was. She didn't have long. In fact, she might never regain consciousness. Still, I wanted to take care of her to the end, this fellow otherworlder human. Ellen, Kabul, and Guido only had some minor injuries. But they were healed immediately thanks to the healing potion. The three of them had their qualms about what happened to Shizue, but not enough to keep them from setting off again after 3 days of rest. They had a report to file and a looming deadline. If anything, 3 days was a generous amount of time to worry over a woman who'd essentially shoehorned herself into their traveling party uninvited. Still, I promised them all that I'd take care of her, and that was enough to put their minds at ease. I decided to give them a farewell gift, a few pieces of equipment, freshly made by the Dwarven brothers. They were all test models, made with materials they had procured themselves, but the quality was respectable. I also tossed in some food and 10 recovery potions for good measure. After receiving gifts, they left immediately. I continued to take care of Shizue. To be continued.